I would like to announce today that on February 12th, the Director of the Census Bureau, Dr. Stephen Dillingham, will be appearing before this committee to answer questions about how the Bureau is responding to the many challenges that our panelists outlined today. And with so much at stake, vigorous oversight of the 2020 census is absolutely essential. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes. This year's census will be the largest and most complex in our nation's history, so the Bureau has a tough job to ensure that every community gets fully and accurately counted. Sadly, the current administration admitted, or practically admitted, that they don't even want to count everyone when they tried to illegally add a citizenship question to the census. As a result, many cities and states have stepped up to ensure everyone is counted. They've established what is called, and Mr. Moore talked about it, and Mr. Morial, complete count committees to identify risks, recommend solutions, and direct state and local funding to areas of hard-to-count, at-risk areas. Mr. Morial, you served in New Orleans on the Complete Count Committee, I believe in 1990, you said, and led that committee as mayor in 2000. Would you agree that establishing these committees is the right move, and would you recommend this practice to other states and localities?
It's important that states and localities, and in the case of Mr. Moore, Regional Economic Development Organization, understand that the success of the census requires a partnership and the involvement of local elected officials. What we don't have visibility on at this point is how many cities, how many states, how many counties have in fact created complete count committees and have operationalized them. One problem with this year's census is that census reduced the number of local partnership offices by 50%. And these local partnership offices were the connective tissue between the complete count committees and the census. So yes, it's an important strategy, and I would encourage it. And I would say that in 2000, the city of New Orleans spent money and had its own effort underway with people and advertising and resources. And I know in this instance, there are a number of communities and cities who are doing the same thing for 2020, and states.
Yeah. Thank you. My home state of New York is doing that. They created their own Complete Count Commission. You pointed out an important point that they've reduced some support in this area. Maybe we should get the Census Bureau to do a review of how many Complete Count committees are out there, and that could have us have a good overview.
It would be very helpful.
And the New York Count Committee came up with 8 risks and challenges, which were similar to what you said today: language barriers, the digital divide, hiring issues, and distrust among communities of color, very similar to what you were saying. And then they came up with 18 specific recommendations and also put in roughly $60 million in city, state, and philanthropic funding to help make sure that the census was stronger. We hope that other communities can also take the initiative as you have in New Orleans. Ms. Gupta, do you believe the Census Bureau should be engaging with these state and local committees to make the Bureau's outreach more efficient and effective? It seems that a better coordination would help. Can you elaborate in this area?
Yeah, these complete count committees are incredibly important. The model was developed by the Bureau at its inception to coordinate state and local efforts around the country to get out the count. And we know that actually most states have indeed created them. There are 5 states that have not. They are Nebraska, South Dakota, and Texas. Florida just this week created one, but one of the challenges is states can't just nominally create these committees. They also have to put significant funding towards them, particularly because this is going to be one of the most difficult enumerations. So Florida created a complete count committee this week, but then did not allocate any dollars to it. So there's mapping, over 24 states have allocated and contributed significant state-based funding to help supplement the federal funding and the work of the Bureau. But that partnership needs to be really tight, and too many states still have not added additional resources to really get the partnership, trusted messengers, communications, supplemental work out as a part of that. And so the Bureau needs to work much more closely with these committees around the country.
Well, I don't have a chance to speak to everyone, but if you could place in writing, I'll let Mr. Moore have the last word on how beneficial these complete count committees. Did you work with them in Georgia? Put on the mic, please.
Not used to that. They've been tremendous. We've actually had a governor's complete count committee since 2017, and honestly, we've had much more emphasis on the census for 2020 than we did in 2010. In our
That's
initial
great.
2010, I don't think we had planned or a lot of support, but we do this year.
That's good. Thank you.
There's partners all over, and we've tracked, I think, almost every county.
Well,
in
my
Georgia
time has
complete
expired,
committee.
but, and I
Sorry
invite
again.
all of the panelists to put in writing their experiences with complete and count committees and other ways they think it needs to be expanded. It's such an important challenge before us, an accurate, fair census. Our Constitution requires it, our government relies on it, and our democracy depends on it. With that, I recognize the distinguished ranking member for 5 minutes.